Hey, good morning. I've learned that most of us don't live life to the fullest. We have so many dreams that we don't chase, and I'm going to shed a little bit of light on how a tragic accident that happened to me woke me up to live life to the fullest. You're going to learn how to change your life with your thoughts and your goals, and I'm going to read a quote from a book that changed my life and helped me to become my future self. The book is The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. This book's author was a nurse from Australia named Bronnie Ware. And in this book, she decided to start journaling all of the regrets for the patients that were in her care. She was in a hospital covering basically what would be in the US hospice care. And the number one regret for patients that are dying was that they wish that they had the courage to live life true to themselves and not at the expectation of others. Think about that for a second. Can you picture yourself in your final moments of life, thinking about your life and wondering if you're going to have regrets? Regrets that you didn't follow your dreams, regrets that you didn't take risks, you didn't have big goals, you're living safe. For me, it's absolutely frightening. I can feel it in my gut. I can picture myself laying on my deathbed. And if you don't change the things in your life today, what will that future self, as you're laying on your deathbed, will you have regrets or will you be content with your life? Well, I can promise that if you start thinking bigger, you will have more hope and promise in your life, and you won't have regrets in that moment. Look, I'm a 50-year-old, and I guess by most people's measures, I was doing okay in life. I was blessed with a great wife, 3 kids who were happy and healthy. I've worked for some great companies. I have great clients. But it wasn't until I had a tragic accident that I began to look at life a little bit differently. I was in a pretty dark place after the accident, months following the accident. Someone jumped off of a bridge on the interstate as I was driving in front of my truck, and I didn't have time to avoid running over them, and they didn't survive. So as you can imagine, that was a pretty awful event to happen in somebody's life. Those were images that no human being should ever have to see. But if you knew me, you would have known there was a lot wrong with me because I really suffered silently inside. And about 6 months after the accident, I met Dr. Benjamin Hardy, who is the author of 10x is easier than 2x, The Gap and the Gain, Who Not How, Be Your Future Self Now, and many, many others. Highly recommend him as an author. But I joined his coaching group because I saw some videos on his YouTube channel, and he was talking a lot about transformation, and honestly, that really resonated with me in the moment. And I got to be honest, when I started really following him and reading his books, it was just like this pull, this energy that I couldn't resist. And so when I joined his group, I really started doing some deep work. I realized that I was living what I call a default future, living in the day-to-day. And I realized that for the past decade, I had stopped dreaming big. I was just going through the motions. Like I said, living life in the day-to-day. But here's the kicker. I didn't even realize that I was doing it. And most of us don't realize that. When I was in my 40s, I started having panic attacks, started struggling with anxiety, and really for no apparent reason. There was nothing wrong with my life. In hindsight, what I've realized now is I'd really stopped dreaming. I'd stopped thinking of big goals. I wasn't excited about being a future self. I wasn't even thinking about those things. So when I joined Dr. Hardy's group and started journaling, and I gotta tell you, I'm not a journaler, for those of you that know me. Before the accident, I would have made fun of people that were journaling because I think it's a little too woo-woo or fluffy for me. But when I started, I recalled so many things from my past that I'd forgotten. Like being a little kid and wanting to speak in front of large audiences. I'd forgotten about that. I don't know when I stopped dreaming about things like that. But I discovered when you stop dreaming about things, you start having these self-limiting beliefs. We start making excuses, telling ourselves lies. I would think like, nah, Clegg, you can't do that. Or I'm not capable of doing that, or maybe I'm not smart enough, or I would say things like, I'm just too busy to do that. How many of us use excuses like that every day? So how many of you think about the self-limiting beliefs that you may have? I found the older that I got, the more risk averse I was. Data has overwhelmingly proven something called the loss aversion. And loss aversion is a theory that we hate risk and the downside more than we appreciate the upside. Our minds would rather keep something lesser but known than risk receiving something bigger or better and unknown. When I was finally fed up with living a default future, I committed to starting a new company. That company's been exceeding expectations in the first 6 months. I made a goal to be on a TEDx stage within 5 years. And because I committed to it, it happened in less than 5 months. Anything is possible when you commit. And that's where most of us go wrong. We live in this constant fear. For those that don't know, there's an acronym for fear. It stands for false evidence appearing real. Fear is an emotion. It's a perception of an event or things that are happening or that could happen. Now, it's a human instinct that we all have, and it's by design to protect us. Now, thousands of years ago, when there were saber-toothed tigers trying to eat us, it made a lot of sense. But the fear that we experience in our brains now is a bit outdated. Our brains need a reboot because the things that we identify as threats really aren't real threats to us. So when I created what I call an impossible goal of doing a TED Talk within 5 years, I asked myself one question: what would have to be true in order for me to achieve that? So I realized that I would need to hire a speaking coach, somebody that's already been down that path and could help me navigate. I needed a compelling story, one that teaches a life lesson and is an idea that's worth sharing. I had pages of notes just with the answers to that question. What would have to be true in order for me to achieve that goal? So I took an immediate action. I found a speaking coach, and I found one that helped me get started right away. And I gave him the goal that I wanted to do that within 5 years. And he helped me get started on that. So much so, it was only 2 weeks afterwards that he sends me an invitation to apply for a TEDx talk. And that was December of 2023. And I completed the TED Talk in April of 2024. I used what executive coach Dan Sullivan calls the 4 C's, which he calls them the building blocks for growth. And the 4 C's are commitment, courage, capability, and confidence. And in that order, take my earlier example of creating the impossible goal of being a TEDx speaker. I first committed to achieving a TED Talk, and then I found the courage. But most of us, as I've done most of my life, we invert that. We want to start with confidence and capability. If I'd waited for confidence and capability, I would have never applied for that TED Talk, because I applied without having the capability, because I committed first. Heck, I wouldn't even have hired a speaking coach had I not committed. But I continued to press and answer that question: what would have to be true in order for me to achieve it? And by hiring that speaking coach, he helped me develop the capabilities necessary to ultimately have the capabilities and the confidence to do the TED Talk. But the commitment came first. Setting big goals is no longer a fear that I have. Once you achieve one of these big goals, you know that you can achieve more of them. Now, some thoughts might be crossing your mind when it comes to achieving big goals. One, you're simultaneously excited by the possibilities, but you're also overwhelmed by them. Certainly understandable. Number 2, maybe you feel caught between competing priorities. Number 3, your life is burdened by too many competing priorities. Number 4, you want to feel crystal clear on your goal before you commit. And I understand that committing to big goals can be a scary thing. Heck, my suggestion is to share that goal with the person you care about the most. If they don't laugh at you when you share what you want to accomplish, then your goal is not big enough. You got to change that mindset, and then you'll change your goals. Journaling and deep reflection on my past were really great tools for me to help pull me out of that hole that the accident put me in. Journaling gave me clarity that I needed to commit to become that TEDx speaker. If you had told me a year ago that I would be on a TEDx stage in April of 2024, I would have said, you are freaking crazy. You've lost your mind. Yet here I am playing in life differently. So please do me a favor. I want you to write down a few of these questions, and then I want you to think deeply about it and write down the answers. You don't even have to tell anybody you're doing it, but please just try it. See where it takes you. The first time you journal, it's probably not going to be some spiritual breakthrough experience. That's okay. It wasn't for me either. In fact, it was kind of weird. But use it just to get your mind moving a little bit, to start thinking differently. It'll only take you a couple minutes for each question. Now, we all have 1,440 minutes in a day. Don't you think you deserve, and your future self deserves, to take a couple of minutes to work on self-development? You and your family deserve it. So please journal on these 4 questions. Number 1, what would be something big and wonderful if you achieved it? Number 2, what self-limiting beliefs do you currently have that popped in your mind as soon as you started thinking of that big achievement? Number 3, what in your past would prevent you from achieving that goal? And the last one, what steps could you take right now to commit to that big idea? You're going to get a video from me every Monday morning, something leadership, professional or personal development. I hope you like this new twist to your development. I look forward to your feedback, and I look forward to seeing you guys again.